This is the story of Brooklyn Beckham, the eldest son of one of the world's most famous families, and the reality of living under the weight of impossible expectations. Brooklyn turned 25 facing relentless criticism as the poster child for what the internet now calls a nepo baby, attacked for his career choices, his lifestyle, and his very existence in the public eye. The 4th of March 1999, Brooklyn Joseph Beckham arrived in London to parents who were already global icons. David Beckham ranked among the world's most celebrated footballers, while Victoria had achieved fame as a Spice Girl before building her own fashion empire. The name Brooklyn itself tells you everything about the world he entered. Named for the New York borough where he was conceived, a detail most children would never share with the world. Privacy has never been an option for the Beckhams. Brooklyn's entire childhood played out in front of cameras as the oldest of 4 children, with brothers Romeo born in 2002 and Cruz in 2005, plus sister Harper 7, who came along in 2011. While most teenagers worried about fitting in at school, Brooklyn navigated life with parents whose combined net worth sits in the hundreds of millions. This level of privilege sits beyond what most people can comprehend, and that exact privilege has become both his greatest advantage and his heaviest burden. When Brooklyn hit 18 in 2017, he published a photography book called What I See. Most aspiring photographers would see publishing a book at 18 as the culmination of years of dedication, training, and building a portfolio that proves their talent. For Brooklyn, the book was simply another opportunity afforded by his last name, and critics questioned whether the work would have been published if it came from anyone else. This marked the beginning of a pattern that would follow him throughout his adult life, where every opportunity he received would be scrutinized, questioned, and attributed not to his abilities, but to his family connections. Parsons School of Design in New York accepted Brooklyn to study photography, one of the world's most prestigious art and design schools. He left after just 1 year. Some might have seen this as a young man discovering that a particular path wasn't right for him, but the watching public and media turned it into evidence that Brooklyn lacked commitment, that he was simply playing at being an artist because he could afford to fail without consequences. And that's where we need to pause and consider something. Brooklyn Beckham has access to opportunities that most people will never see. His family's wealth and connections have opened doors that remain closed to others. But when does privilege become a prison? And when does being born into fame mean you're not allowed to explore, to make mistakes, to change your mind about what you want to do with your life? After stepping away from photography as a serious pursuit, Brooklyn turned his attention to cooking. Around 2020 and 2021, cooking videos started appearing on his Instagram and Facebook, where he shared recipes, demonstrated techniques, and presented himself as someone who genuinely enjoyed being in the kitchen. For many content creators, this would have been a wholesome way to connect with followers, but for Brooklyn, it became another lightning rod for criticism. The comment sections of his cooking videos filled with mockery. People tore into him for making simple sandwiches and basic recipes, pointing out that despite having no professional culinary training, he was positioning himself as some kind of cooking authority. They noted the expensive ingredients and high-end equipment visible in his videos, highlighting the disconnect between his lifestyle and that of his viewers. Some questioned whether his passion for cooking was genuine or just another attempt to find an identity separate from his famous parents. The term nepo baby, short for nepotism baby, has become shorthand for children of famous or wealthy parents who pursue careers in industries where their parents have influence. Brooklyn Beckham has become perhaps the most discussed example of this phenomenon, and the criticism isn't just that he has advantages. What gets people is that he seems to move from one career to another without mastering any of them, without facing the consequences of failure that ordinary people face, and without acknowledging the role his privilege plays in his opportunities. But here's what often gets lost in these discussions. Brooklyn has pursued modeling work and various brand collaborations, built a social media following in the millions, and maintained relationships with his family despite the intense public scrutiny. In April 2022, he married American actress Nicola Peltz in a wedding that reportedly cost between $3 and $4 million, held at the Peltz family estate in Palm Beach, Florida. Nicola's father, Nelson Peltz, is a billionaire businessman and investor with a net worth estimated in the billions. Brooklyn didn't just marry into another famous family, he married into another stratospherically wealthy family, and to outsiders, this seemed to confirm every assumption about Brooklyn's life. He exists in a bubble of privilege so complete that he cannot possibly understand how ordinary people live. But the marriage also revealed cracks in the perfect Beckham family image. Shortly after the wedding, rumors began circulating about tension between Victoria Beckham and Nicola Peltz, and the media seized on reports of a wedding dress drama. Nicola had not worn a Victoria Beckham design for her wedding, choosing another designer instead. And what might have been a simple personal preference became fodder for speculation about family rifts, about controlling mothers-in-law, about a new wife being frozen out by her husband's famous mother. Both the Beckham and Peltz families have addressed these rumors in various interviews, generally downplaying any serious conflict. The speculation hasn't stopped though, because in a world where the Beckhams have carefully crafted an image of family unity and support, any hint of discord becomes major news. And that's where the sad reality at the heart of Brooklyn Beckham's story lives. He has never been allowed to simply be a young person figuring out his life, where every decision he makes gets analyzed, every career pivot gets mocked, and every relationship gets scrutinized for signs of trouble. He cannot post a cooking video without thousands of people questioning his authenticity, cannot change his career direction without being accused of being a dilettante, cannot defend his wife without fueling rumors of family drama. Brooklyn has defended Nicola publicly on multiple occasions, and the couple maintains an active social media presence, often posting affectionate photos and messages. They appear together at events, and Brooklyn has made it clear that his loyalty to his wife is absolute. But even this becomes a source of speculation. Is he choosing his wife over his family? Is he being controlled? Or is there a deeper rift than anyone knows? Brooklyn Beckham is living out a very modern tragedy. He was born into circumstances that gave him every material advantage, but those same circumstances have made it nearly impossible for him to be seen as anything other than a symbol of unearned privilege. Photography, modeling, cooking, brand partnerships, nothing he does will ever be evaluated on its own merits because his name will always precede his work. Consider what it must be like to be 25 years old, to have tried multiple career paths, to be married to someone you love, to maintain relationships with your parents and siblings, and to have millions of people around the world convinced that you're a joke. Not because you've done anything particularly terrible, not because you've hurt anyone, but simply because you exist as a symbol of everything people resent about wealth and privilege. Brooklyn has multiple tattoos, including tributes to his family members, has lived in London, Los Angeles, and New York, and grew up with access to global celebrities and experiences that most people only dream about. He's known nothing but extreme privilege his entire life, and yet there's something genuinely sad about a young man who cannot escape his own surname, who cannot make a single choice without it being filtered through public opinion about his privilege. The Beckham family often appears together at events, and their social media posts generally show closeness and support. David and Victoria have built not just wealth, but a brand around their family, and that brand depends on presenting a united front. But what happens when one member of that family wants to break away, to establish their own identity, to be seen as something other than a Beckham? And what happens when every attempt to do so is met with ridicule? Brooklyn Beckham hasn't exposed some dark family secret and hasn't revealed abuse or betrayal. The sad reality he's living isn't about scandal. It's about the impossibility of winning when you're born into extreme privilege in an age of social media and public judgment. He can't win by embracing his advantages because that confirms people's worst assumptions about him. Can't win by downplaying his privilege because people see through it immediately. Can't pursue his interests without being accused of being a dilettante, and can't give up on things without being accused of lacking commitment. Brooklyn Beckham is trapped in a spotlight he never chose, expected to be grateful for advantages that have also become his greatest disadvantage, and criticized for making the same mistakes and exploring the same interests that most 20-somethings do. The only difference is he's doing it while millions of people watch and judge. At 25, most people are still figuring out who they are and what they want from life. They're allowed to change their minds, to try different careers, to make mistakes without the whole world commenting on it. Brooklyn Beckham will never have that luxury, and his sad reality isn't about family drama or exposed secrets. It's about being born into circumstances that guarantee he will never be seen as anything more than the sum of his privileges, never be evaluated on his own merits, and never escape the burden of a name that's both his greatest gift and his heaviest weight.